Hey there, Mark Brown. We are live. Our first live stream on using StreamYard on YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, all of the above. So, hey,
Sure.
welcome to our podcast. This is a brand new experience. And Mark, how are you today?
I'm doing well. I had a very busy day up at 6 a.m. You're 3, and it's now 6:05 p.m., and I'm still chugging along, man. And I went to Orange Theory today as well. So there you go.
You went to Orange Theory. You're a good man. Well, Mark, hey, one of the things that I don't know that we've ever talked about, if we did, it was a long time ago, but version 1.0, I thought it would be perfect when you're a speaker, when you're a presenter, if you got new content, 1.0, 1.0, what do you do? How do you make the most of it? And then what do you do after you deliver version 1.0? Let's.
Anyone can give a presentation. Few deliver unforgettable presentations. What's the difference? You're about to find out. Welcome to the Unforgettable Presentations Podcasts with your hosts, world champion speakers and coaches Mark Brown.
Your life tells a story, and there's someone out there who needs to hear it.
And Darren LaCroix.
Stage time, stage time, stage time.
Ready for some powerful presentation ahas? Let's dive right in.
All right, Mark Brown. Wow, that actually worked.
Well, so far, so great.
Sometimes on version 1.0, when you're starting a new story, when you're trying to, maybe it's a new presentation, like we've got to know there's version 1.0, there's preparation before 1.0, and then there's 1.0, and there's what do you do after. So Mark, one of the reasons we're on StreamYard here is because of our friend, our student, as well as our colleague, Amanda Mae Gray. So I'm going to invite her to join us. AMG, how are you?
OMG, it's AMG again.
Again, I am back. Thank you for having me. I'm well. How are you guys doing? Ooh, the sound effect.
Yeah, I'm still learning how to use whoops. Apparently it's a loop.
Apparently I'm very good at this.
It's a loop. I learned how to loop and how not to loop. I did not know that. And I was inspired by you yesterday, Amanda Mae Gray. If you want to use, what are we on StreamYard? I almost said Udemy and all these new things, but StreamYard. So you taught us yesterday in Stage Time University. And so I thought, how perfect would it be to have Amanda Mae Gray join us for this? So whether it's new content as a story, whether it's your first time you're doing a webinar, whether it's a first time you're doing a live stream, first times. So Amanda Mae Gray, I know you said that you had like a story of the reason you even joined StreamYard or started using StreamYard. Tell us that story.
Yeah, so 2 years ago, you decided we would go live for 77 days, and that's how it felt. It didn't feel like I decided we were going live. It felt like you did, and I had to go along for the ride. And we were going live on Facebook, and I just found it to be clunky. I didn't like the experience. I didn't think it looked good. I had all the intentions in the world to take the video, download that video, upload it to my YouTube, clip it out, potentially put it somewhere else. And then I found that I wasn't actually doing that because the process of all those steps was complicated. It didn't look great. It wasn't easy to do. And therefore, I just didn't really do it. And I thought there has got to be a better way. There's got to be something that's prettier. So I'll want to use it and works well. It's got to be pretty for me. If it's not pretty, I'm probably not going to use it. So I contacted a friend. He was live streaming and his name is Jim Fuse. He was like, oh, you got to check out this StreamYard thing. It's so awesome. So I did, and I was instantly hooked because it allowed me to reach 3 destinations, my LinkedIn, my Facebook, and my YouTube simultaneously in one stream, which I just thought was the coolest thing. And then I found all sorts of other things I could utilize the program for.
That's so cool. And Ford Sakes is now using it, actually loading recordings up to play it live while he's on a plane. I'm like, that's a jet setter. But what did you learn from version 1.0? What were some of the lessons? Let's say 1.0, 2.0 along the way early on. I mean, we talked about this in the book, 17 Minutes to Your Dream. And I know you got to run, but I had to invite you because you're the reason we're doing this today.
Well, I think version 1.0 of anything is always the scariest version. It's that lead up, right? Like you anticipate it, you overthink it, you worry about all the things that could go wrong, you're worried about what people are going to think. Are you even going to do it right? You get yourself all worked up. And then when it's live, it's time, it's like crickets, right? Like you're like, and you could choke up. But then after that, it just gets easier every single time. That's with speaking. That's with going live. That's with doing photo shoot. I don't care what it is. Anytime you're at that first stage, I think is the scariest. So if you can push yourself past that first stage and just do it and go with it and shake off those fears, then it's just going to get easier and easier. And you're going to be like, wow, that wasn't so bad, first of all. Second of all, wow, look how far I've come. I'm getting so much better at this.
Yeah, you got to get version 1.0 in order to get to 2.0. You can't jump over 1.0. Mark, your thoughts?
Well, I think there's one cautionary tale here. Many of us want the 1.0 to be so good, we don't get to the 1.0. We keep changing and tweaking and adjusting and fixing and editing, getting a different microphone, change my camera. I need to get 2 cameras. I need to do a 3-camera shoot. I need to add the story. And we never actually get to version 1.0. And one of the ideas that we have for you is to just go to the first version. You know it's not going to be perfect, but at least you will do that first version. I think, Darren, you told me years ago, you subscribe to the idea of done is better than perfect for version 1. Because if we try to make version 1.0 perfect, we likely never, ever get it done. And we can learn more from version 1.0. We can see more clearly what we need to fix. But until we actually complete it, we won't know what needs to get fixed. I caution for everyone with a speech, with a presentation, with using music technology, at least get the first version done, look back and say, that's where I need to make some changes right away. Don't get caught up in the idea, I got to edit as I go and make it gooder. Get the version 1.0 done and look back and say, here's where I can make some modifications.
Yeah. It doesn't mean we don't prepare, but I think one of the keys is version 1.0 has to be in an audience that will give you grace, and your career is not on the line. That's one of the reasons there's one exception, but I never try new content on a paying audience, a high paid keynote speech. And the one exception is if it's content about them. Obviously, I couldn't have tried that on another audience. If it's customized content, if I found out that something happened at the airport and everybody was affected, like the FAA thing this morning, the day this is recorded, if something funny happened, everybody is upset because the parking lot's being repaved. So I'm at a company and everybody's frustrated about that. Well, I want to still talk it out with some people and friends, like over the phone, try it on them. But it's really hard to do that live one when people aren't necessarily, you can't test it. You can't test it. So one exception is if it's content about them, customized content, then I don't worry about it because it's about them. So it doesn't have to be perfect. And I've done it enough that I have a good flavor. And if it doesn't work, I quickly move to the next point. So we don't pull out the spotlight and say, hey, I thought that was funny. Right. You didn't. There's the old joke in the comedy world where they walk over to the bar stool where a piece of paper is, they cross that off. I'll never try that one again. standard stock line, but it works, especially in that situation. And Mark, we had talked about on our previous podcast that we're going to check in with people. Are you all in? So we asked you in the last podcast. So it's a follow-up. If you didn't hear it, go back and listen to last week's podcast. Are you all in? That's a whole different subject, but version 1.0, you got to do 1.0 if you're all in, and you're going to make mistakes. So for us, one of the reasons I love Stage Time and what we've created. So right after this, we have a Stage Time weekly coaching call, although Amanda Mae will be playing tennis.
Way to out me on that. Yes, I will be playing tennis.
So in that is a great place. It's a community that's designed to give you feedback. They're real life audience. Look, there's no such thing as a rehearsal speech. Practice speeches. There's still live people. So we still want to get your intent across, but we don't know what's going to land and what isn't going to land. So we've got to be able to crave feedback. We got to crave feedback. And Toastmasters, another great place to do version 1.0. Another great place. They're real live people. But here's the key is, well, we'll get to after you deliver it, what to do with it. But what you must do is record it. Version 1.0 must be recorded. And as Craig Valentine says, what gets recorded gets rewarded. You are too close. If you've ever been to a comedy show and you see a comedian say to his other comedians, hey, write that one down for me. Like he does something improv in the moment, says, write that one down, and the audience laughs. But it's real because that might be something we've never done before, and we want to remember the moment because we might want to reuse it. But if you're recording yourself, you're going to capture it because here's the key. Then you get out of that place of emotion and tension, and you have a better perspective about your speech than you will have in the moment that it's happening. Mark?
What's cool is when you record version 1.0, again, you don't need to be high tech. The 21st century mobile devices have high def cameras, pretty good audio. You don't need to go all high tech, but just get the recording so you can review it, because in the review, you will begin, as I said earlier, to see what areas can use improvement, especially if you're getting coached by someone who's very astute. And we'll go into coaching a little bit later, I guess. But the idea is they can also see what you don't see. But if you don't record it, we won't know. Matter of fact, Darren, I have a coaching client, and he sent me a script for his keynote, and I'm going through this thing. Oh, Darren, we have some work to do. Came back to me in spades, and we had a video call about it, and I realized what he put on paper was not the whole picture. So I was lacking context. I was lacking emotion. I'm saying, this needs a lot of work. He said, no, I'm going to video record it and send it to you again. It'll make more sense when you actually see it. And the truth is, that has happened before. I've had clients whose speeches made much more sense when I saw it visually than when I read the script. So the videotape recording is a critical part of the process of the version 1.0. And I would submit, Amanda Mae and Darren and friends, that any recorded version 1.0 gets you to version 1.1 more quickly, because now we can see, not just read what you've done with your presentation.
Nice. Amanda Mae, other thoughts that come up for you?
Well, it's interesting. You said see versus read. And I think a lot of times we get hung up once we've written something out, but it comes out so much differently when we actually just say it anyways, right? Like
that never happens that way for me. That does for you.
Oh yeah, just once in a while. But also once you've recorded it, it's almost like a makeover before and after, right? You can go back and appreciate the work, because in the middle of working on it, where you get to version 3 and 3.0, 3.5, right? Once you've worked on it a bunch of times, you won't feel like you've made a lot of progress per se. But when you go back and watch, you can say, oh, wow, whoa, oof, that was a little rough, but it wasn't so bad. And I'm glad I started. You'll be so much happier to started.
Where did that voice come from?
I have voices. I don't know what to tell you. If you go back and look at my YouTubes, you'll be like, rough.
That
Same
sounds
thing.
good.
Nice. Well, and this is version 1.0 of our live stream using a brand new program I signed up for today. And I thought, what better topic to talk about than version 1.0? Because I think people get scared. What comedians will do in the stand-up comedy world is they'll actually use a tried and true joke or bit. Then they'll test the new material, and then they'll follow it up with a tried or true joke or bit. So it's sandwiched in the middle. So if it doesn't do good, or if there's a lull, we can bring them back. And for speakers, same thing. You know, we want to put it after something. Now it's got to make sense in the structure of your whole speech. But we want to find a place where we can, if it's not working, we can bail and go right to what does work. Mark?
I hope everyone caught what you just said, Darren. You said, I signed up for this StreamYard today. And here we are. We're streaming live via StreamYard, live on our podcast today. And you signed up for it today. So this is version 1.0 of the Unforgettable Presentations podcast, streaming live on several platforms. But if we don't do it, version 1.0, we'll never know how well we did it or what needs to be improved. So the idea is it's going to take the effort to accept the responsibility of the risk and at least begin. We said in our podcast, episode 176 last week, don't make a resolution, make a decision and then act on that decision. Today is Darren acting on a decision today. So we're not just preaching it, we're doing it. We encourage you. You know, you've thought about it. I want to do it, but it's not going to sound perfect. No, it won't. But it will be the first step in a direction. It'll give you momentum. And once you get momentum going, you'll be amazed at what you can do when you accept the decision, take the step, and let version 1.0 go out there. You can tweak it and work on it as you go along. And trust me, I hate to break anybody's bubble, but you may think version 17.0 will be the one you want to. It's going to work because you got 17 minutes to your dream. So they did, Darren. So they did there. Okay. But very good presentations get tweaked, adjusted, and changed continually over time, sometimes over years, and sometimes over decades. Because as you, Darren, know, and Amanda Mae as well, I do a program for middle school students that I began doing way back in 1995, almost 30 years ago. And I'm still modifying it. I'm still changing it. And I'm still getting requests to deliver it to this day. It's a part of the process. You got to start, make the decision, take the action, and deliver that version 1.0.
I mean, even when we started boot camps, we do live events, workshops. We've been doing it for decades. When Craig Valentine and I did the very first version of our champ camp, we used to call them. It was in Dallas because I thought I have a big following in Dallas because I had spoken at Toastmasters there. He had spoken at Toastmasters there, so we thought we have big followings there. This will be easy to fill the room. Now, we didn't know what we were doing, but it was version 1.0. We're like, yeah, we're going to do it. I lived in Tulsa at the time. I drove to Dallas. Well, I sent out some emails. He sent out some emails, but we've never done events before, so we're not known for doing events. It's new to our audience. They haven't had time to think about it. They haven't been thinking about it for years that, you know, I got to go to one of those. I got to join them at Game Changers in March. Hint, hint. Anyway, so when we did it, it was a 2-day event and we were going to teach how to create a great speech, how to make it awesome, how to get paid, how to market yourself, we didn't know what we were doing and took off way more than we could chew, or bit off way more than we could chew. However, the cliche goes. We had 3 people there. The second day, we had 4 people there because a guy walked in off the street and we let him stay. He didn't pay, but we let him stay. But we lost money. It's not about version 1.0. It's about doing 1.0. What do you learn from 1.0? And then what can we apply later? I wasn't even thinking about that example, but it's a perfect example. If you're sitting out there, you're listening to this, you have a new idea for a story, well, you're not sure. Just do it. Do it. Do it in a low risk environment. Toastmasters, join us in stage time. Love to have you join us in stage time. but find that low risk environment and just test it, because you might be blown away on the feedback you get. Mark?
It's so funny you say that, because you, Darren, when you and I were working together back in 2001, you had a version of 1.0 with certain stories in it that never made the final cut. The 1.0, put it out there to assess what you have. And sometimes version 1.0 will lead to a question: is that the best story for that particular point? When you begin to think differently, you begin to dig deeper in your life, and you begin to mine your life for more valid stories or more appropriate stories, depending on your message. And before you know it, you're finding from within you material that's been there lying dormant for weeks, months, maybe years. But by going with the version 1.0, you get the aha. Says, you know what? I've got something better here. I need to do that. And I believe, Amanda Mae, you were going through that also with one of your stories. You're saying, that's not the strongest story for this particular thing I want to make.
Yep.
Real quick, what was that like for you when that version was not the best version for you?
It's funny because you just kind of feel that isn't there. But if you don't choose to keep pushing and keep working on it, then nothing happens. And a year goes by and you're like, I have this idea. I haven't done anything with it. I wish I did something with it. I know there's something in me. Ugh. And then that's the internal. It's an official one.
Bring your own
And then
sound
once you start, of course. How do you not have your own? I don't have your fancy buttons. I just use fancy programs. But yeah, once you start doing it, it makes a huge difference, because then your ideas just start coming in. And especially when you get to work with other people, I think that's also really key. Is it's hard to do version 1.0 solo. No matter what it is, no matter if you're a solopreneur, you're a speaker, it doesn't matter. If you're doing it completely by yourself, it can be really challenging to know where to go, how to do it better, what else you can do. To find people in a similar community, if it's speaking, like in Stage Time, that you can bounce ideas off of, work with, and get some qualified feedback, that makes all the difference. It's all about that coaching.
Qualified feedback. Nice.
What's interesting, Darren and Amanda Mae, occurred to me just now. When I was in the Toastmasters journey way back in 1995, the previous millennium, right? I realized I was preparing a presentation for my semifinal, called regional back then, and then my final. And Darren mentioned there's no such thing as a practice speech. My version of 1.0, my audience was my family and my kids. Okay? It may sound ridiculous. My 11-year-old daughter gave me some advice. One piece of advice that changed the way I changed my 1.0 to my 1.1 with that bit of advice. And eventually she gave me told me to use a line, thought it was crazy, used the line, got a 13-second laugh by using the line. My point is, your version of 1.0 test audience does not have to be a major audience. It's people you trust who are used to you, who can be honest with you and tell you what you can change. It was my family, my kids, and my wife, and they were a great version of 1.0 and version 2.0 audience for me. Matter of fact, I'm not bragging here, but the World Championship in '95, when I gave that speech on stage, I had given it to 3 different audiences. My main coach, David Brooks in Texas, my stage coaches, not stage coach like Yeehaw, but my stage coaches, Robert Randagalia, God bless him, in New York City, and my family. And they helped me to modify that speech in 21 days from version 1.0 to version 7.0, and that won me a title. But I used my family. I shouldn't say I used. I was thankful for my family who were great sounding boards for the version 1.0. You don't need to go and get the pro audience up front. Start with people who know you, who love you, and who will help you in the best way they know how. Then you move on to more qualified coaching. Darren.
Yeah, and Mark, our first question came in, our first comment. Yay.
Hello.
So cool. This one came in from Facebook. You can tell where they come in from too. So this one comes from a gentleman. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Okello Ben. I hope I'm pronouncing it right. He says, I love what you're doing. My question is, what ways can I use to penetrate the speaking business? Thank you. Great question. Different topic, but yet it's kind of related to this. So you've got to do version 1.0 of asking for the sale. So when you're giving your presentation for people who are just trying to break in, what's that lead magnet? What's that offering that you can have in order to build your list? Build your list, get people to know about you. So for me, I have the top 10 speaking mistakes that in my presentation, whether it's free or for a fee, I collect names of people I'm going to get that PDF to. They are potential clients, customers, stage time members, might refer me for a paid speech. So to make that step, which is not an easy step, you got to start asking. You got to start asking, what's the end game after your presentation? Is there another way you can serve them? You know, one-on-one coaching with Amanda Mae Gray, where she could help you set up your StreamYard, set up your studio, whatever that is. So to begin, look, your content has to be so good that people are talking about themselves after your presentation, not you. We hope they're talking about you and how good you are, but more importantly, what impact did you make on them? What are they going to do differently because they heard you? That's how you know. Impact, write this down. Impact follows, oops, I got to remember my own quote right. And I'm not even going to edit this out. Dollars follow impact.
There you go.
Dollars follow impact. So Kello, you need to make the impact first. And then just going to basics, your website. Is your website something that an event planner would go to and say, ooh, we need him, we need his message? So you got to get clear on what problem you solve. So I don't want to go too off topic, but in line with the topic, it's perfect because it's how do you start in a new part of your business? Well, you got to start building your list. And an easy way to do that is create a PDF, create content that people are going to want to give you their email. And if they don't want to give you their email for it, either you need a new offering. What are you offering for free? Or your presentation needs to be upgraded 10 times. Like, look, it's never going to be perfect, but we got to start with 1.0. And Amanda Mae, I know you got to go serve tennis. So I want to offer you the opportunity. Any other quick thoughts on version 1.0? Because I remember when you did the 77-day challenge out of the book, you talked about how, well, why 77 days? And then eventually you were glad that it was because you made some upgrades if you hadn't committed to the 77 days that you might not have made. And now you've got this amazing studio. Now you train speakers how to set up their studios. Yep. So encouragement along the way.
Yeah, it was like I thought I had something good, and then I would tweak one little thing, and I would tweak another thing, and then I would try something else. And every little tweak ended up into a professional podcast studio to the point where I am literally now getting paid to do this, but you are seeing live or potentially listening to. And that was because I kept tweaking and kept asking, how can I do it better? How can I make it look better, sound better, be a better experience for my audience? But that all started because I said yes to the challenge and I took that action. Now, I will tell you, when I started your challenge, I did a couple days. I think I did like 2 or 3 days, and then I stopped. I was busy. Something happened. Maybe I had tennis. I don't know. No, I wasn't playing tennis, but I stopped for a day, and I was like really beating myself up by the end of the day. Like, oh my God, I didn't do this. Am I going to go back to it? And I did. Next day, I went right back into it. So I would encourage, like, don't beat yourself up if you miss a day or if this milestone doesn't get it. Don't let it ruin everything. Be proud of the progress you've made, but always be asking, how can I do it better? What can I do different? How can I serve people more? In fact, my first podcast was technically, where's the pillow? I don't even know if it's right here. Here it is. It was called Hello Sunshine because I had this pillow and it was in frame. Now, luckily, I did not. That was it. Everybody else thought it was like something more. No, I liked this pillow. It said pillow. It was in frame. And that was the name of the podcast. Turns out Reese Witherspoon has a podcast and a whole media network called Hello Sunshine.
Wah, 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 wah.
That could have been a huge issue, right? I mean, that could have been a massive, like, she comes to sue me, da 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 da. But I didn't stop. I just changed the name, right? I didn't let it go. What I decided was I'm just going to keep going. But if I hadn't started, if I hadn't taken the initiative and just said, you know what? I like this pillow. It's in frame. Let's just go with it. And then do more research.
What's your podcast called now, Amanda Mae?
It is now called Yes You May with Amanda Mae Gray.
And
I
Yes You
actually have
May.
3 more coming out.
Okay, so Yes You May was version 1.0 was Hello Sunshine. You
Was
found
Hello
out you had to
Sunshine.
make a change, and you made the change, and you had to go through the process of finding what's going to work for you. But you started with version 1.0. I hope we're all getting this, friends. You're going to start somewhere with version 1.0. You don't keep hitching, and maybe you can't get all the details right the first time. You won't. You'll make some mistakes, but at least you'll get started, get some momentum going, and learn along the way. Power of going with version 1.0.
Let the pillow be your guide is the wisdom here, Mark. I am dangerous when it comes to little fun toys as we go.
Yeah, isn't it fun? You can even type up all the questions and put those on screen. Oh, yeah.
Version 1.0 is Darren's doing it live, man. He's
got toys.
He's implementing version 1.0 as we speak. And he's doing it live. Hey, Sam Connor, good to see you here on Facebook, buddy. Been a while, man. Been a minute.
Nice. Very nice. So, Amanda Mae, I know you got to jump off. So, thanks for joining us. Thanks for being a part. Thanks for being the inspiration to get me up and going. I'm a late bloomer, but eventually I bloom there. So, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
Awesome. So, see ya. So, Mark, one of the things that I think is important and critical is the preparation. We never want version 1.0 to just be winging it. We still want to, if it's a story, for example, going back to presentations, if it's a story, we still want to structure the story. We want to still prepare, make sure we hit the right points, make sure we're telling it in dialogue, create a foundational phrase if possible as we teach. But sometimes along the line, you might have a foundational phrase. But I don't know if you remember when we did Lady and the Champs a few years ago when I did the rope analogy, and I had someone who was in the audience who said, let the rope be your hope or be their hope or something like that. It came from John Kindy. And what was powerful was that was awesome. My speech set it up, but sometimes some of the best ideas are going to come from your audience, because they see it and hear it differently than you. So another reason to record. And after that, you got to run and ask and crave feedback. Now, Mark, I've never said this before on any of our podcasts over the past 2 years, but what I would recommend is I have my questions that I ask the audience, especially when I'm working it out. I want to ask them what inspired them. What inspired them? What made them think? So what inspired them? What made them think? Oh, when you talked about your mom and dad and telling them they wanted to be a comedian, boom. Yes. Boom. Okay. So question number 3, what was not clear? 99% of what Mark and I coach is clarity, clarity, clarity. So what wasn't clear? And then I usually leave it open comments, any other comments, because sometimes they have random things that didn't ask. But I want to know what inspired them. I want to know what hit them. I want to know what made them think. A good presentation is going to involve thoughts and thinking. I want to know what wasn't clear, because sometimes I might have a great idea, but I just muffled it up by too many adjectives or not enough adjectives or whatever. But here's one, Mark, that I've never mentioned before, inspired by our buddy Michael Haig, where he says, does it elicit emotion? Did it elicit emotion? The story that I told, did it elicit emotion? That's an end game goal that I never asked before. But if your stories aren't eliciting emotion, just doesn't mean don't use them. It means maybe we got to adjust them. We got to add something. We got to take something out. But asking that as an end game, does it elicit emotion? Mark?
Yeah, he often tells me too, the purpose of a story is to elicit emotion. And we tend to, as human beings, we have our favorite stories. And our version 1.0 often has our favorite stories. But what will best serve the audience? Going back to the audience telling you what they want to hear, how you can really serve them. Version 1.0 may have your favorite story, but as you go through the process of testing and trying and listening to your audience, you may find this is not the best story, as you found out back in 01 when you were competing in Tilters contest. What was the best story for you? One you had lived with for a long time did not make the final cut. But it began with version 1.0 and testing it and seeing that would work. And that was very, very helpful.
Yeah. And related, Rich Hopkins said, I've been frustrated podcasting. Ask myself, should I have one for speaking and one for motivation, or just talk about whichever one hits me that day? Paralysis by analysis. Great question, of which I would love to tell you from my experience. I would say I got nothing.
I love it.
Just being honest here, but here are my thoughts, but this is not based on experience because I haven't done it. Because I think of having my least likely podcast, the motivational podcast, the stories of people who've overcome. And I know how much work this podcast is, and it's not as much as I thought it would be, but it's a fair amount. It's every week. And so the thought of doing another one, even though I would love it and enjoy it, until I have other things clicking and the business has changed the trajectory, I can't think of it. But Rich, I would say have a different title, have a different one, and see if that one takes off or if you enjoy that one more. And where your joy is, there will be your passion, and there you're gonna have a better audience because you're lit up. It's been said by many people, the world doesn't need another speaker. The world needs another speaker that will light up the world, something like that. And same thing with podcasts. We don't need another podcast. No one does. Nobody needs but Mark and I love to do it. We enjoy doing it. We always find something to talk about, and it brings us joy, and it helps build our business. So I don't know if that answers your question. Mark, any thoughts on that?
I can't add much to that because my first thought was, well, if he's handling one well now and he wants to do two, if the workload is okay, that's fine. But your heart's got to be in it. And the escape side is, the caveat is, there are those who creatively find a way to use one vehicle to deliver multiple messages. That may be an option for you. I don't know. But if your podcast is being marketed to have the content that provides the inspiration and also the technical skills to deliver a presentation well, maybe you have a unique podcast opportunity. I don't know. I would certainly test it out. I'd certainly try it and see what happens. And if your heart isn't in it, your heart will talk to you.
Yep. Or is there an umbrella that both of them could fit under? That's an idea as well. So, but we are not the podcast superstar heroes knowing all of that business wise. So Mark and I are still figuring this out in the long, but I hope that was helpful. Rich, thank you for being comment number 2 we've ever had doing this. And Mark, this is so much easier than doing like a Facebook live stream. Oh, like Amanda Mae said.
Well, you learned it yesterday, you did it today. That's good. Version 1.0 is working so far, and we will review and tweak as time goes by. Definitely.
Yeah. Again, whatever your version 1.0 is, crave feedback. Don't give up too soon. A new comedian or a comedian trying new material will usually take a joke and test it at least in front of 3 different audiences before they give up on it. Because it might be one weekend, a Friday night show and 2 shows on Saturday night, but they'll test it because sometimes it could be just an eyebrow at the right time. It could be a facial expression or a change in delivery that could make the difference. So they'll test it at least 3 times. So I encourage you, try your story, do it 2 or 3 times, but crave that feedback, ask good questions, and don't take it personally. They're not judging you. They're judging the delivery you had on that day, in that moment, in front of that audience. That's it. It's not you as a person or you as a presenter. Mark?
I'm smiling because I can remember when I was competing in a Toastmasters contest, I'd earned a spot in the World Championship, and I had a speech I thought was going to be really good. And I tested it in front of my Toastmasters club and others. I knew I was going to get laughs here, here, and here. Crickets the first time. Made some changes. Crickets the second time. The third time, eventually I scrapped that speech and worked on something much more meaningful that won me the title. The point is, I was willing to test it at least 3 times. And I was not going to keep flogging a dead horse. At that point, we know what? It's not working. Don't even do it. And it takes guts to make that kind of choice with less than 3 weeks to go to the final. But giving yourself the room to test and see what works, it gives you also permission to make adjustments. And hopefully with the guidance of a good coach, you can make those changes. Because I want to let you know, I did speak to David Brooks about this, and it was he who guided me in a completely different direction. And the result was a speech I gave 28 years ago that won me a world title and literally changed the trajectory of my life.
So never underestimate the power of version 1.0 because it leads to 2.0. Adjustments may need to be made. So we encourage you to do this. We encourage you to do another 1.0. Try a brand new story you've never tried, but do it on a low risk audience and then crave feedback. Crave it. Don't just ask for it. Crave it. And then remember, be careful. You want to know thought and felt. Anyone can give you that feedback. Here's how to make it better. Only a qualified coach. So Mark Brown, take us home.
My friends, it was a blast. We're doing our first live broadcast using StreamYard to various platforms. We hope today you understood the value of beginning that first step with 1.0. And if you join us, we'll help you and guide you along the path to go from good to great to unforgettable.
Hey there, this is Darren. I hope you enjoyed that program and you got some great insights from watching this video podcast. Now, we don't put all of them on YouTube like you're watching now. We just put a select few. So if you want to get all the episodes, you can go right now to Apple Podcast. You can go to Google Play, Stitcher, or Spotify, or check it out on your favorite platform. See if it's there for you. But we'd love to have you subscribe. Join us every single week for new content, new stories, and new strategies behind unforgettable presentations. Subscribe now.